Hello, all. I just want to give you a little update on what's going on with So Strange Times, Volume 1. And unfortunately, some bumps in the road were hit. It happens, and things are being pushed back, but that's all right. We'll get them fixed and settled and back on the road again in no time. I'm still hoping for a 2022 release. I think it's still in the stars for this to happen. It's just going to probably be more so towards the November, December side, which, hey, holidays, right? So, because of the delay and everything, I decided to do something a little special for you all. And why not read the entirety of Chapter 1? You guys are getting all of Chapter 1. The book is 12 chapters total, so I promise this isn't going to affect anything. It's just getting your feet wet. So, with that said, let's jump into So Strange Times, Volume 1, Chapter 1, Welcome to the Neighborhood. I must have dozed off after seeing the welcome sign because I don't remember passing through the town. I didn't recall seeing any streets, houses outside of the ones next to our new home, businesses, nothing. Yet, it's almost as if we entered a portal and then swoosh, we're here pulling up in front of our home. Could you imagine if that were the case? A random portal situated in an almost middle of nowhere town that only function is to take you to a home. My house in particular. That would be incredibly odd, and little did I know at the time, odd was a nice way to describe Crescent. We pulled up to the house and Dad parked Alice on the concrete driveway. I gave our new home a long look as I exit out of Alice. This wasn't the first time I've seen the place, but it almost felt like it was. And for some strange reason, I couldn't remember anything of the town of Crescent. It was like I wasn't allowed to, even though I'd been there 2 previous times. I was with Dad when he was searching for a town and a house to move to. He kept asking for my opinion on everything we saw. I didn't have the heart to tell him that I didn't care and would be fine with whatever. It was summer, school was out, and house hunting wasn't on the top of my priorities list. I think he saw this as a time to bond with one another. 14-year-old me thought it was annoying and pointless. Now, many years later, I've come to appreciate this experience. He let me in on the decision-making and, without saying it, let me know I had a voice. This house, though. This house that 14-year-old me is looking at, well, there was something different about it. Sure, on the outside it looked like a normal 2-story cream-colored house. Well, the front door, a tall and rather large dark brown door, was intimidating. It even had one of those old back-in-the-day knockers. You'd be surprised by how loud that thing was. I remember once a delivery driver used that knocker and the sound echoed throughout the entire house. You could feel the literal vibrations go through your body. It's almost like the house was showing it was happy to receive a package. Again, though, the house from the outside looked normal. It had 2-car garage, 2 front top windows, and 2 front bottom windows. There was a brick walkway that leads to the front door. There's a tree in the yard and grass that never needed to be cut. I think it was something called creeping fescue. The way it blew in the wind was really sweet, and it tickled when you laid on it. But it was relaxing. It was a nice house that was now my home. I needed to name it. I wanted to call him Gustav, but I knew better. You can't just give a name. A name is earned or learned. The house at the moment hadn't earned the right to be named yet, and I wasn't open enough to learn if it had a name. Now, here I was standing halfway out of Alice thinking about what to name a house. I was mumbling to myself various names I thought would fit, but none seemed right. My father tapping me on the shoulder and saying in his calm voice, "Hey boy, I know she's a cutie and all, but you can't stare and gawk at her and not do any work." Hearing those words from my dad's mouth caused my face to scrunch up like I just ate a sour candy and was trying hard to keep it in my mouth and not spit it out. Dad was trying to be funny, which I could appreciate if he didn't say such painfully weird things like that. So I replied back to him in the best way I could. I put my hand on my dad's shoulder and my facial expression turned serious. I acted like I was going to say something but got choked up on the words and nothing would come out. My dad leaned in closer in anticipation for what I was going to say. I like to think Dad was saying to himself while watching me, what could be so important, so thought-provoking that my son has to search deep to find the words? I took a deep breath and I looked Dad in his tired gray eyes. I told him as frankly as possible, "It's a guy," and then walked to the back of Alice to grab some boxes and go inside of the house. I caught a glimpse of Dad and he was completely dumbfounded. His head tilted to the side as he looked back at the house, scratching it. I think I even heard Dad repeat what I said to him in a confused and under his breath manner. "It's a guy." I chuckled to myself and entered the house with the boxes. The inside of the house looked different from when I first saw it with Dad. Not just the look, but the feel. The house felt lonely back then, like it wanted and needed people to make it a home. It's almost as if it was calling out to us. Now I wish I was paying more attention when I was here originally, just to appreciate the changes the house has gone through all the more. I mean, sure, it didn't have furniture in it the first time I saw it, and walls called for new paint and wooden floors needed polishing. It was rather pathetic. Now seeing this place, it was like new energy came to it and woke it up from a long slumber. Maybe it really was calling out to someone. I put the boxes down on the freshly lacquered wooden floor and eyed my new home. The house was no longer dusty. It had fresh white paint. The house had a new energy. I had a new energy. Dare I say I was feeling excitement? I decided to take a quick walk around the downstairs. I really didn't feel like carrying more boxes, and I know Dad would have made me. Yes, at times I can be that lazy and downright allergic to manual labor. As long as I stayed out of sight, then I would be out of mind. Besides, Dad is getting older. He needs the workout. At least that's the excuse I told myself. It wasn't the best excuse, but it was good enough. I have to hand it to my dad. Having the house furnished before we moved in was smart and cut down on the work. The living room had a 65-inch LCD television pinned into the wall in front of a sectional brown clothed sofa. I can just picture my dad sitting there, watching his sports, and him calling me to watch with them, knowing darn well I don't care for sports at all. If I wanted to see a bunch of simple-minded Neanderthals hitting one another for pleasure or chasing after a ball, then I'd hang out with people my age. I continued on my downstairs tour, which now took me to the dining room. There was a glossy wooden table in the center of the room, and hugging a wall was a wooden and glass china cabinet. Of course, the cabinet was empty for the moment, but I'm sure tomorrow it will be stacked with the fine china that we never use. Seriously, what's the point of having it if we never use it? I thought. Next, I checked out the downstairs bathroom and, well, I don't know what I was expecting to find. It was a bathroom. Nothing more to it than that. Finally, I entered the kitchen. It was a nice kitchen with its gray and black stone countertops, a big sink, garbage disposal, 4-burner gas stove, but the thing that caught my eye the most was the refrigerator. It was big, shiny, and I was hungry, and it was inviting me over. I just knew it had to have something scrumptious inside it. Shrimp, maybe pork chops, lasagna. No way Dad wouldn't have the fridge packed with food. I was salivating at the very thought of eating. I started to get anxious and fidgety. I took a breath and I opened the refrigerator door. My eyes widened in disbelief from what I saw. "It's nothing freaking in here," I said aloud while shaking my head. Did Dad expect us to eat air pies? I stared into the empty fridge. Why I did this, I don't know. Perhaps I thought through some weird twist of fate I could poof something edible into it. Really though, it's stupid on my part to expect some food to be in there. Dad was packing and driving from the city, so it would literally be impossible for him to stock up. I closed the fridge door and rolled my eyes so hard from annoyance I was sure I could see my brains. Moments later, a vibration jolted through my pocket from my cell phone. Someone had sent me a text, the someone being my dad. The text read, "Come to the front door." I didn't reply and just put my phone back in my pocket. I think I had the only parent who didn't do the typical parent thing of yelling for their kid. You know what I'm talking about. You can be a single room over and your parent yells. Usually it's to get you to do something trivial. Not my dad, though. He's a civilized man, and instead he sends texts. And if I take too long, I got a dreaded phone call. I would much prefer he yell for me. As I walked back to the front door through the living room, I noticed that all the moving boxes were in. How did Dad do this so quickly? I thought to myself while scratching my head in confusion. Then I caught a whiff of something. A very peculiar smell. I can still recognize that scent to this very day. It's true what they say about memory being tied to smell. Strange how the human mind and body works, isn't it? The smell in question wasn't bad, but I could have done without its aroma punching me in the face like it did. It smelled like a mix of strawberries, a campfire, and black licorice. It was the black licorice part that was off-putting. I am not a fan of black licorice, and I will immediately judge and question anyone who likes anything with that black nastiness in it. Yes, I am that petty, and I don't think it's anything wrong with it. So I looked around the room trying to find the source of the smell. It didn't take long for me to find it. At the door was a woman speaking to Dad. This woman was short, petite, olive skin tone, and the brightest green eyes I had ever seen. They reminded me of sparkling emeralds. She was most likely in her 30s, but she dressed like a woman from the 1950s. She wore a polka dot black and red dress with matching shoes and had very dark hair. So dark I'm sure it was dyed. She was probably trying to hide the salt and pepper in it. I guess even small town dolts care about aging and not just us city folks. I remember she had on lipstick that was black mixed with red. It really stood out to me. The colors went together so well to the point I started to feel a little weird admiring lipstick. Finally, I remember her wearing a type of snake medallion necklace. I was thinking to myself how odd for someone to wear that type of jewelry. It's a bit gaudy for my taste, but everyone has their own taste and style. Her style was unique, to say the least, but she pulled it off. Can't say the same about my dad's dorky, non-existent sense of taste. Looking at the two of them, you couldn't help but see the vast difference between them. It was almost comical, yet it was something nice about that difference. They both had their own uniqueness. I was standing in the background as Dad was conversing with the woman. He must have completely forgotten that he sent me a text to come here. Lord, they're speaking like they're old friends, I thought to myself. Not even 20 minutes here and already the town gossip shows up. I was pretty darn sure she was trying to find all the little dirt on us to yap about to anyone who would listen. That's what happens in these small towns. At least that's what I thought. It took everything for me to remain silent and not be rude, but I was getting irritated. I was hungry, tired, and more than anything, wanted to get away from that weird smell emanating from her. How Dad was able to withstand it, I shall never know. For some reason, she kept giggling at things my dad was saying, and she even touched his shoulder. That's when it hit me. She was flirting with Dad. Great, I sarcastically thought. She's not the town gossip. Instead, we met the town flirt I assessed at that time. I'll say now that the assessment might have been a little off. After what seemed like an eternity, the woman and Dad finally ended their conversation, and as she turned to leave, our eyes momentarily met. The woman winked at me, and something came over me. I still don't know if I have ever explained this properly, but I'm going to try to explain it again. It was as if time stopped and darkness surrounded me and her, as if we'd fallen into a void deprived of any type of light. I could feel my heart beat, only it wasn't beating normal. It was beating slow. Too slow. It felt like it was 1 beat per second. Now, I'm no medical professional, but I'm pretty sure that's not a good sign. I couldn't move. I didn't feel like I was breathing. I felt cold, like my very life essence was being sucked from me. I didn't feel fear. In fact, I don't think I was afraid at all. I was just frozen. Was this from her? Was this woman somehow affecting me by just looking at me in the eyes? How could that even be possible? I thought to myself. I don't know how much time had passed while I was in this state, but I wanted out of it. Try as I may, I was just unable to move an inch. I knew I had to overpower whatever this was, but I just couldn't. I found myself mentally becoming drained, and all the while she was just standing there, looking at me. I wanted to scream, flail about, and throw the biggest tantrum I could muster, something that would have made the 5-year-old me in the past proud. But I just couldn't do it. As she continued to stand there and stare at me, I felt more of my energy leaving. My vision was becoming blurry. I couldn't feel my heartbeat at all, and my willpower was sapped. I was fading, but before I was completely gone, I was saved by none other than Dad. Lexington, what are you doing? I heard him say, but it didn't fully register. Lex, quit staring at the door, kid. You're freaking me out. After hearing him the second time is when I snapped back into reality. The woman was gone, and I was just standing there staring at a closed door. I turned to Dad, who somehow had a platter of food in his hands. Dad, who was that? And where did the food come from? I asked him, trying to understand what just happened to me. My dad gave me a concerned look. You don't remember? You guys spoke for about a minute. That's our neighbor, Miss Lamia. She was welcoming us to the neighborhood and gave us a welcome meal. She even helped me bring in the boxes since a certain someone left me. I hated how the last part of Dad's statement came out of his mouth. It was a tactic to make me feel guilty. It partially worked, but I was too hungry for the guilt to take full effect. I looked at the platter of food in Dad's hands. It consisted of some weird green vegetable I wouldn't dare touch, but along with it was pork chops and strawberry cheesecake. Those were two of my favorite things to eat. If you've never had a succulent pork chop followed by rich, smooth cheesecake, then I pity you. Dad and I sat on the couch and ate like pigs. Miss Lamia might have been the town flirt, but she was a pretty decent cook. Dad and I both clocked in early after the meal, but for differing reasons. I knew Dad wanted to get up early and unpack and put things in order, and that would be a lot of manual work I'd much rather avoid. So instead, I'm going to wake up early and take Celine and check out the town. This would be killing two birds with one stone type of situation, avoiding the boring and slow unpacking, plus checking out the town and filling in the blank spots I have of it. It was odd I couldn't really recall passing through it or any of the landmarks. Maybe I was just that tired and dozed off without realizing it. That night, the first night in our new and still nameless home, wasn't the best. I didn't get much sleep, not because I was excited about being there, which admittedly I was more excited than when we first arrived. It wasn't because my room was scary or I was hearing noises. The only noise in my room was coming from the radio, which I had on the jazz station. At that moment, I only had my radio, TV, and bed in my room. There were a few boxes of clothes thrown about as well. I liked my room. It was simple and comfy, and really that's all I needed. I enjoyed keeping it simple like that. I'm drifting off base though, so let me get back on track. The reason I didn't get much sleep was because I was recalling in my head the events that had happened with Lamia. Did she cause me to go into that weird state, or was it from hunger? And why couldn't I remember speaking to her? What's more is, she had a full thing of food prepared for my dad and I. Did she know we were coming? Why weren't there other people here to greet us? Plus, what are the chances of her cooking up some of my favorite things to eat? Those were questions lapping my mind hard. Questions I had no answers to. Something just doesn't add up, I thought as I laid in my bed. Eventually my eyes got heavy, and the soft music coming from my radio would help me reach the slumber I so needed. An interesting first welcome to the neighborhood, indeed.